Hello, everyone. Today, I'm going to share a few real stories that are hard to explain. These stories were published by a member of a search and rescue team. He claims that everything he talks about is true. I've been working in search and rescue, SAR, for several years now, and in that time, I've seen some strange things. I've got a long list of successful rescues. Most missing persons just stray off the trail or slip down a small ridge and can't find their way back. Most of them have heard the advice, stay in one place and wait, so they don't usually wander too far. But there were two cases where that advice didn't help. Both still bother me deeply. I think about them every time I feel like giving up during a search. The first was a little boy who had gone berry picking with his family. He was walking with his sister, and they both went missing at the same time. Their parents lost sight of them for just a moment, but that was all it took. When they couldn't find the kids, they called us. We found the daughter pretty quickly, but when we asked her about her brother, she said he'd been taken by the bear man. According to her, he gave her some berries and told her to stay quiet. He just wanted to play with her little brother for a while. The last she saw of him, he was calmly sitting on the bear man's shoulders. Naturally, we assumed it was a kidnapping, but there were no tracks at the scene. None that didn't belong to the children. The girl insisted it wasn't a regular man. He was tall, covered in fur like a bear, and had a weird face. We searched that area for a week and found nothing. The second case involved a young woman who was hiking with her mother and grandmother. According to her mother, the girl had climbed a tree to get a better view of the area and never came down. They waited for hours near the tree, calling her name, until they finally contacted us. Once again, we scoured the area, and again, there was no sign of her. I have no idea where she could have gone. Her mother and grandmother both said they never saw her descend. I've gone on searches with dogs, and more than once they've led me straight to the edge of a cliff. Not a hill or a pile of rocks, sheer, vertical walls with no ledges or handholds. It's always baffling. In those cases, we usually find the missing person either on the other side of the cliff somehow or several kilometers from where their tracks vanished. I'm sure there's an explanation, but it's probably not a normal one. There was one case where I was out with another officer. We were in a part of the forest known for bear sightings. We were looking for a man who hadn't returned after a climb and had to ascend ourselves to search. We found the climber trapped in a narrow crevice, his leg broken. He'd been there for nearly 2 days, and it was clear the leg was infected. We airlifted him out, and later I heard from one of the medics that the man was inconsolable. He kept repeating the same thing. Everything had been fine until he reached the summit. There he saw a man. The man had no climbing gear, just a parka and ski pants. The climber approached him, but when the man turned around, he had no face, just blank. The climber panicked and began descending too fast. He fell. He said he could hear the faceless man all night long, coming down the mountain after him, making awful, muffled screams. That story scared the hell out of me. I'm glad I didn't hear it directly from him.
One of the scariest experiences I've ever had happened during a search for a girl who'd gotten separated from her hiking group. We were out late because the dogs had picked up a scent. When we found her, she was curled up beneath a large, rotten log. No shoes, no bag. She was in shock. No injuries, so we started walking her back to base on foot. The whole way, she kept looking over her shoulder, asking, "Why is that big man with the black eyes following us?" We couldn't see anyone, so we chalked up the shock. But the closer we got to base, the more agitated she became. She begged us to make him stop making faces. At one point, she stopped cold, turned toward the trees, and screamed, "Leave me alone! I'm not going with you, and I'm not giving them to you either!" Eventually, we got her moving again, but strange noises began to follow us, like coughing, only deeper, more rhythmic, insect-like. I can't describe it properly. When we reached the edge of the base, the girl turned to me. Her eyes were wide, wider than I've ever seen on a human face. She touched my shoulder and said, "He wants me to tell you to walk faster." He doesn't like the scratch on your neck. I had a tiny scratch just under my collar, not visible. I have no idea how she knew about it. Right then, I heard that strange cough right next to me. My heart nearly stopped. I hurried the girl along, trying not to show how scared I was. I was just glad when we made it out.
The disappearance of children is always the hardest to take. It doesn't matter under what circumstances they vanish. It's always terrifying, and we always fear we'll find them dead. That rarely happens, but sometimes it does. David Paulides talks a lot about children being found in places where they shouldn't or couldn't be. I can honestly say, I've heard more of such cases than I've personally witnessed. But I'll share one that I was there for. One that I've thought about for a long time. A mother and her 3 children were having a picnic at a park near a small lake. One child was 6, another 5, and the youngest about 3. She was watching them closely. Said she never took her eyes off them, and importantly, she said she didn't see anyone else nearby. They packed up their things and began walking back to the parking lot. The lake is about 3 kilometers from the forest, and it's near a well-maintained trail. It's nearly impossible to get lost unless you're the kind of idiot who deliberately steps off the path. Her kids were walking ahead of her when she suddenly heard someone behind her on the trail. She turned around, and in the 4 seconds her eyes were off her children, her 5-year-old son disappeared. She assumed he'd stepped off the trail to pee. She asked the other 2 kids where he went. Both of them said, "A big man with a scary face came out of the woods next to us, took his hand, and led him into the trees." The strangest part was, the kids didn't seem upset by their brother being gone. Later, the mother said it was like they were drugged, like they were in a daze, not fully there. She freaked out, started desperately searching the area. She was calling out his name, and at one point, she thought she heard him answer back. But she knew she couldn't run blindly into the woods, not with the 2 other kids still with her. So she called the police. We were dispatched immediately. We searched for that child, walked for miles and miles, and found absolutely no sign of him. The dogs couldn't pick up a scent. We found no clothing, no broken branches, nothing to indicate the boy had even been in that forest. Of course, the mother was a suspect for a while, but it quickly became clear that she was devastated. We kept looking for weeks. We had so many volunteers helping, but eventually the official search period ended and we had to move on. Volunteers kept looking, and one day, we got a radio call. "A body's been found. You need to recover it." The volunteers gave us the location, and none of us could believe it. We honestly thought it had to be a different kid, but we went there. It was 25 kilometers from where he vanished, and yes, it was the boy we'd been searching for. I tried to make sense of what happened to that child, but I couldn't. One volunteer had just randomly decided to search in that area, simply because no one else had even considered it. He came to the base of a steep, rocky slope and spotted something halfway up. He looked through binoculars and saw the small body wedged in a narrow rock opening. He recognized the color of the shirt from the missing person posters, called it in. It took us almost an hour to retrieve the body. Even with climbing gear, it was a nightmare. That slope was brutal. There is no way a 5-year-old boy could have climbed up there on his own. No way. But there's more. The body had no visible injuries. His shoes were missing, but his feet weren't scratched or dirty. If some animal had dragged him up there, it would have looked very different. And he hadn't been dead the whole time. He had been missing for over a month, but he had died only a day or 2 before we found him. That's what chilled me to the bone. The medical examiner later confirmed he died from environmental exposure. He froze to death, probably late at night, 2 days before the recovery. No suspects, no answers. To this day, it's still one of the strangest things I've ever seen. And finally, one of the strangest stories I've got. I don't know if this happens at all SAR stations,
But for us, it's common enough that no one even questions it anymore. Every time we go deep into the forest, I'm talking 50 to 60 kilometers from base, we eventually come across stairs. Just stairs. In the middle of nowhere, as if someone cut them out of a house and dropped them into the woods. The first time I saw them, I had a ton of questions, but I was told it's normal. Now, when I see them, I just ignore them. They show up a lot.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos. If you have your own mysterious story, write it in the comments, and it might be featured in our next video. See you soon.